If you're about to start running, watch this video before you do, because I'm going to tell you what I wish so many of my clients knew and or did before they started running, which would have really helped them prevent injuries and have a more enjoyable running experience. So, hi, my name is Catherine. I'm the founder and principal therapist of LSM Clinic, a sport and remedial massage therapy clinic in East London. In this channel, I share information about how the body works and tips of muscle care and taking care of your body so you can enjoy your favorite activities and live pain-free or as close to it as possible. Now, in this series, I'm sharing the things that I wish my clients knew before they started certain activities so they could avoid problems, injuries, etc. And today we're talking about running. Running seems easy, right? Just put your shoes on and go. We all ran around as kids, or at least most of us did. But actually, there are a lot of things that can happen if you start running after not having been very active for a while, or maybe not having done this type of sport for a while. And honestly, even if you have been doing like rugby, football, other types of like athletic running type things, you might still want to watch this because there may be some things that you didn't realize doing the other things that could actually be setting you up for problems later on. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is glute and lower ab activation, and actually lumbopelvic stability in general, which is like your lower abs, your pelvic floor, your glutes, a bit of your back. But really, what we really focus on a lot with our clients is glute activation. And this is because the glutes, when they're doing their job, support the stability of your hips and your pelvis, which means that there's a lot less unnecessary strain on your quads, on your hamstrings, on your calves, on your Achilles, on your knees, on your hips, on everything, right? And then we want the lower abdominals to be supporting your torso and your back, and that really helps avoid getting too much lower back problems when you're running. When we work with clients, we can do something as simple as like a 20-minute, twice a week conditioning workout, which involves a few simple movements. But even if you just want to get to the basics, like just check your glute activation, see if your glutes are working, and you can start with just squats and lunges a couple times a week. But you have to make sure that your glutes are activating when you're doing squats and lunges, because you can actually do squats and lunges and not use your glutes at all. And then that just ends up putting more strain on your knees. And make sure your form is good. So I do have a video specifically talking about how people do glutes and lunges incorrectly. So I'll link that below. And I have a whole glute activation playlist where you can check your glute activation. You can check if have ideas about how to activate your glutes in your day-to-day life, all that good stuff. And if you want something more in-depth, I do have a guide that I wrote with a personal trainer who specialized in coaching people in running. That was a conditioning guide. I'll put a link below. The second tip is know how to stretch effectively and do it regularly. Now, stretching effectively has a few different layers. The first thing is you want to know why certain muscles are getting tight, right? Like if your quads are excessively tight, or you feel like your IT band is getting really tight, or the back of your hip is really stiff, which is usually the piriformis, not the glutes. Knowing why those things are happening are going to be really important, because a lot of the time when you have certain muscles that are getting overly tight, they're actually compensating for something else. Like if your quads are just getting tight and nothing else really seems to be getting super tight, that's a clue that they're compensating for something. So instead of foam rolling your IT band and stretching your quads loads, you go, oh, it's probably glute activation, and you check your glutes. And if your glutes, you can get your glutes working, then your quads will get less tight. If you're just stretching things that are getting overly tight without identifying why that's happening, you can either get to a place where your stretches stop working because your body stops responding, or you end up with an injury because you're taking away the compensation, right? You're releasing the things that's getting overly tight, but you're not then giving it the stability it needs by like fixing the thing it's compensating for. The other thing with stretching is that it's absolutely possible to overstretch, right? You do need to stretch in general because you're doing a repetitive movement with your muscles, so they do need some release. But a lot of times what people will do when they're stretching correctly is they will stretch like for a half an hour every time, all of their muscles, they push really hard into them. And then those muscles can actually end up getting tighter because you're overstretching, because you're pushing your muscles. So knowing how to stretch effectively and doing in such a way that it is actually effective. And one of the best ways to know if your stretching is effective is to test it before and after you stretch. If you don't feel looser after you stretch than you do before, even if it feels like you're really stretching during, you're probably not stretching effectively. And I do have a stretching playlist on this channel, which I will link below. And I'm actually going to be revisiting that this year. So if you would like to be notified when I release the new stretching playlist that I'm going to be doing in a couple of months, please make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when I release those videos. Another thing is aim for a midfoot strike. A midfoot strike is basically if you watch kids running around, most of the time that's what they're doing. A midfoot strike is when it kind of looks like your whole foot is hitting the ground at once, but really it's kind of just behind the ball of your feet, and it's like what's happening basically. If you're too much on your toes when you're running, you have a higher risk of overworking your Achilles and getting tight calves. And if you're doing a heel strike, which is like putting your foot out in front of you and hitting with your heel first, you're not going to get the same force absorption that you would if your foot's under you and you're landing more on your midfoot. And also you don't get the natural kind of elasticity that you get through the joints of the body with the hip and the knee and the ankle all bending together because you're kind of reaching out and hitting yourself first. That's a quick one, but it's a good thing to bear in mind when you're running. And it might feel weird to do a midfoot strike if your glutes aren't activating. So that can be something that you might want to look into. This next one's really important because it will save you a lot of heartache in the long run. Know your niggles. Listen to your niggles, don't ignore them, and learn what they mean, right? So a lot of times people think, oh, it's just a niggle. It's not that big of a deal. I can just ignore it. But actually, those niggles are your body's early warning sign to be like, hey, there's something going on here that isn't quite right. Can you check this out? Can you look into it? And then once you get to know your niggles, then you can be really proactive with what you need to do. For example, I know if I'm going for a jog and the inside of my left shin is bothering me, my left glutes probably aren't firing. And if the inside of my right knee is bothering me, my right glutes. If my lower back feels heavy, I need to reconnect with my lower abs, right? And if my knees feel heavy when I'm running, my piriformis is probably tight. So I know these things because when I've had them in the past, I've tried to figure out how to fix them. And then because I know them, I can either go get a massage, do some stretching or foam rolling, start my glute activation again, or do it a little bit more because sometimes they don't always fire right away. But knowing your niggles and doing something about them instead of ignoring them is going to go a long way to making sure that you avoid a more serious injury where you're like laid up for weeks, right? So with the niggles, you might be wondering, how can I tell the difference between a niggle and muscle soreness, right? Because especially when you first start working out something new, you're going to have general soreness. It might be hard to tell at first. And so it is going to be a little bit about looking at your body and like getting to know your body. But one of the things that I would say is if it's like, hopefully when you're sore, you're going to have like general soreness in the muscle. Like your whole quad might be sore, your whole glute might be sore, or your whole calf might be sore. A niggle would be more like a very specific point, especially if it's different from right to left. So like you get a little bit of pain in the middle of your left calf and you don't get any in your right, or it's like a very specific spot in one part of your knee. Those are the kinds of things. And if you're not sure, again, this can be something that develops over time, but that's what I would say is a thing to look out for. Okay, I've got 3 more tips for you and then we're done. Next is make sure you do a good warm-up. Okay, a warm-up can seem like such a waste of time. I really understand. And I used to skip this all the time too. But number 1, you want to do something that just warms up your body, like literally. So let's say that you're jogging for 20 or 30 minutes when you're starting, do a brisk walk for 5 to 7 minutes. Do movements that help to wake up the muscles that you're about to use. So do your glute activation, do your ab activation, do knee lifts, do heel kicks where your foot is coming up to hit your butt. Like do things that mimic the activity that you're about to use so those muscles are switched on before you ask them to repetitively be going for however long you're going to be jogging. And then finally, and this seems small, but it actually makes a huge difference, do joint circles. I used to skip these all the time. And then when I started doing them regularly, which is like doing circles with your ankles, with your knees, with your hips, and I'll even do like my shoulders and my wrists just because, but especially in the legs, I feel so much more spongy and so much more bouncy in my joints. Like I'm not hitting as hard. And that's partially because when you do your warm up like that with the joint circles, it helps more synovial fluid go into the joints. Next, make sure you're fueling yourself. This seems like a smaller one. And honestly, when you're starting out, if you're just starting to jog and you're doing, again, like 20, 30 minutes at a time, maybe a little bit longer, it's probably not as important. But after you exercise, your body looks to replenish the fuel, and it looks for fuel that it can use to help rebuild and repair after the exercise you've done. So a lot of times people will come in and they'll be like, I'm so exhausted, like the day after I've done a run. And to be fair, this tends to be the marathon trainers who feel this the most. But it's because your body's looking for protein and carbohydrate after you exercise to replenish your glycogen and to build muscle, right? Or repair the muscle. Then the last tip that I have for you is don't overdo it. It is so common to be really excited about getting into a new habit, especially if you're doing it when the weather's getting nicer, or you're really motivated for something, or you've got something coming up that you want to, like an event that you're going to be running at. But if you don't rest and give your body that time to rebuild, you're not going to get as much out of your training as you can if you rest. Think of it this way. When you run, when you do your exercise, your body is getting stimulus, right? It's making changes. You're asking your heart to work harder. You're asking blood to deliver to the muscles better, etc. When you rest, your body is responding to that stimulus. It's building the things it needs to be able to perform better next time. And it's integrating the changes that are being asked of it from that stimulus. So if you go before your body has time to repair and rebuild and prepare, you're never going to get as good of a performance as you do as if you wait. And you're just not going to do as well. And you are setting yourself up for injury because, it's kind of like, imagine if you don't get enough sleep and then you go into work and you do something that, requires concentration. When you're tired, you can't focus, you can't perform as well. If your body's still recovering from what you did, it can't perform as well either. So I would say definitely take the time you feel you need. Like there was one point when I was running just once a week and I actually had the best gains week to week in how many more minutes I could run. And I think that's because I was giving myself so much rest time. Whereas before, when I would try to run like 3 times a week, I would get injured a lot quicker and I wouldn't make the same gains. And I just realized for my body, once a week worked really well. Obviously, it's going to be different for everybody, but I would say like at least a day in between training. And once you get used to it and like running for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 or whatever you go up to feels normal and it doesn't feel so strenuous, then you might need less rest or you might be able to do a short, gentle run in between. Especially when you're starting out, make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time to recuperate. So there are your tips. I hope you found this helpful. Let me know if you try any of the tips in the comments. And if you're in East London and you'd like to get checked out to see what you might be carrying that might affect your running, we do a runner's MOT plus report where we look at your posture and movements. We do some releases and we then give you a report about what we find and the self-care that we recommend and like different things can be linked to and some of the articles and videos that we have. If you want to have some resources around foam rolling, because a lot of times you're foam rolling your legs when you're running, we have a free foam rolling workshop that you can check out, and I will link that in the description. We have a ton of links in the description today. But I hope this helps you to incorporate some of the things that will help prevent injury and help make your running more enjoyable and successful. If you have any questions about anything I've said, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you know anybody who would like to start running or is thinking about it and you think that they would find this video useful, I'd really appreciate it if you could share it with them. And obviously liking this video helps it to get to more people. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video, either in this series or in one of the videos that I've talked about glutes and stretching. So have a great day.